all a setup, fake news, a lie. They said he drove from Allentown to El Paso with a rifle in his hand. Wasn't he living in San Antonio? They said he uploaded a manifesto on 8chan with the racist brand, but he's not a racist. And then the witnesses, they saw the scene of more than one man, one in jeans, a few in black wearing masks, and some with army rifles in the mall. Applaud the media stall. Oh my. They didn't say Patsy couldn't speak until about 6 years old. They didn't say he hit himself, autistic and special ed, we didn't know. They didn't say his hands were awkward and his motor skills were slow. Patsy, was it all a ruse? Patsy, did they paint the news? With your name in blood and the story spun, were you the fall guy when the deed was done? Patsy, were you just a pawn? Was the truth withdrawn? Zero income, that can't be, doesn't add up. He bought an AK-47 online with no money in his cup. They didn't ask why he had zero income, zero needs for a wealthy boy. Like a child, he signed Patsy on the line for millions on the taxpayer's dime. Lawyers went cha-ching, millions and millions for an evil scheme. Patsy, was it all a ruse? Patsy, did they paint the news? With your name in blood and the story spun, were you the fall guy when the deed was done? Patsy, were you just a pawn? Was the truth withdrawn? They didn't show the footage clear of what the camera saw. They didn't mention his El Paso family, how his brother married a Mayela. You know his judge's manager's daughter. Y'all, what the hell is that all about? Who taught him how to aim and fire? Who guided his unsteady hand? A Patsy who struggled just to speak, now part of a deadly plan. Was this a dirty political screed, a way to attack Trump's accelerating speed? In a world of cartel, terroristic organizations, was it on that day a diversion to keep accountability away? Did they need a Patsy for their plan? Patsy, 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 he surrendered not once but twice. His timing wasn't precise. Police didn't even bag his hands. Patsy, was it all a ruse? Patsy, Patsy, tell me, was it all for the news? They didn't even read his nice rights. Justice for Richard Halliday.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so for 5.5 years, more than 5.5 years, we have been putting together our son's case, and it is totally intertwined with the 2019 August 3rd Walmart mass shooting. And so we've absolutely have been filing, identifying why it's so intertwined with the code red, with the retaliation, with our son's case, our son's investigation, why, and we have identified it and we have filed it, and and then our job was to convince you that the two cases were intertwined, and now we want to convince you that they're intertwined with the Jeffrey Epstein, John of God pipeline, criminal trafficking pipeline. Very intertwined with that. We're putting all the pieces together. We're putting the maps together, we're putting the timeline together, all of the hard evidence so that you can see it, right? That you can see it, you can make sense of the craziness, the chaos that we have been living through for years and years. And once you know, then we can absolutely um, I want to use the word pressure, drive. We can drive then the narrative because we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And once you see the evidence, once you trust us, right? Trust us, Team Fine Richard Halliday, you will have the facts, and then you can drive the narrative that will drive justice, will drive the agencies and institutions to do the right thing, even though they're crooked. Remember, there's, of course, we're a Christian family, and we've relied heavily on God through this whole thing, of course, every day in our life, and we didn't realize how much uh, how much that we need to rely on God, and how much God's hand has been on all of this. Excuse me. I've been talking a lot today because of all the information. But remember, there is a Bible story where the old widow wants justice, and she goes to the unjust judge, like a Mormon faction cartel, El Paso cartel judge, right? A Mormon faction like Judge Guadarrama, or a Sam Madrano, or the criminal law magistrate court judges, or, that are illegal. They're the real problems because they're illegal. Uh, but but she goes to an unjust judge, so it couldn't be the magistrate judges, because they're, Anthony Aoun, he's just an imposter. He's just an imposter. He might run with the Mayellas, but he is an imposter judge. Okay. um can't get over that one. That he became a magistrate judge, I mean, really, gosh. So it has to be a real judge. And so the old widow goes to the unjust judge, and goes back to the unjust judge, and goes back to the unjust judge, with each time demanding justice. And he has to give it to her. He has to give it to her. So this is the way the world works. And that's why they want to control the media. That's why they want to control the schools. That's why they want to control Hollywood, because this is a mind control, a mind control operation. That's why they're so keen on Fort Huachuca, because Fort Huachuca is all about mind control. That's why John Brian Crucius was so keen on mind control, because he needed mind control to cover um, up all the crimes, the fraud, and the worst of the worst crimes against children, and everything like that. Um, it's just a terrible thing. But they need the mind control um, to deceive you. It's deception, and this is, what we have been up against since the beginning is deception. The lies, the lies, the lies, the lies, the cover up, the lies, the false narratives, the false stories, the tampering of documents to make them lying documents, not the truth documents, but to deceive law enforcement, deceive any white hat, anybody that's halfway wanting justice, paying attention. They wanted to deceive, 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 And that's what we've been up against, is deception and getting the truth out there. And you know what? We've been right all along, haven't we? We've been right all along. And so let's get started. And that's really the theme for today. Here it is, almost 1 o'clock in the morning again. It's so late. But we have no time to sleep. We have no time to rest because, there's so much at stake here. There's so much at stake at the border, in El Paso, in Mexico, all over the world, because this pipeline, as you see, was international. International. And with the Jeffrey Epstein file releases, it's becoming very, very clear how broad this pipeline was operating, and that it took years to do that, right? It took years. It's been going on a long time, this deception. And so, really, we're so happy that the mask is falling off, right? That the curtain is opening up, that we are getting a enough nuggets of truth to be able to put this together with all of the evidence that we have gathered. Because I want to make it very clear, we don't think that everything in the Epstein file release is true, right? We know that they've tampered with files, tamper with information, but they can't tamper with everything, right? Because you're talking about millions of of pages, millions of pages. And they, so we have to discern, and we have to put things together. And what we know is that Jeffrey Epstein was absolutely working in the U.S. consulate buildings there in Juarez with his absolutely um, sex cult activities in our U.S. consulate in Juarez. That is that's the big news. That's really big news. And I'll be going into that with along with the other information today. So let's get started. Today is 2011 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room. From his barracks room, he was forcibly removed and taken downstairs to the basement room, the arms room, which is a soundproof room, and they took his life there. Okay, he fought really hard, but they took his life there, and they stole his body, and they had the connections, the Mormon faction, El Paso cartel connections, like, and I'll name names, and I've been naming names, the director of emergency services, Thomas Kane, who allowed our son's remains to be taken, stolen off of Fort Bliss, and then trafficked to Mexico. Trafficked to Mexico. He allowed that to happen. He controls the cameras, he controls the gates, he controls the security on Fort Bliss. He breached the security and allowed that to happen. And so, there's a few really big prime suspects in this. He's one of them. Of course, Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader, is the main suspect in taking our son's life. Of course, you have Tavita Nusa, CID agent that in 2021 had his credentials revoked, his badge taken from him. He's the brother of mortuary operations officer Solomon Nusa, and the mortuary operations were absolutely participating in the most disgusting fraud with the funeral homes in El Paso. And we were retaliated against that by that group. They retaliated against our family, and we've had top of those people um, contact us. Phew, it is just it's unbelievable. Um, what we have gone through and are going through, which confirms that they were absolutely up to no good. And of course, they were transnational. They were operating back and forth between Mexico and the United States, Juarez and El Paso and Fort Bliss. Um, so that is very, very important because when you do this kind of level of crime, then you have many corpses. You have a lot of bodies that you have to dispose of. And Richard's body was taken over to Mexico. We believe that evidence indicates his organs were harvested, and then his body was disposed of at Plenitude Crematorium. This involves connections to purchase funeral homes. This involves connections to Beto O'Rourke. This involves connections to a lot of businesses in El Paso because the owners from that flesh peddling fraud hellhole. They live in El Paso. They do business just like Zoran Mandami, the New York uh, the New York governor. Uh, is he? Yeah. Um, Mayor. Sorry, the New York mayor. Let me look this up. It's so late. Please tell me. He wasn't on my bingo card, y'all. He wasn't on my bingo card. Um, yeah, mayor. Okay, so he's the mayor. Gosh, the mayor of New York. Like who is he really? And now he is part of Richard's case. You can't make this stuff up, and I don't want him to be part of Richard's case. I didn't tell his mother, and I'm sure him because him and his mother are close. I didn't tell. Uh, I mean, his mother's first husband is Mitch Epstein. Mitch Epstein. You can't. They're at Ghislaine Ghislaine's townhouse in New York, partying harding with Bill Clinton and Jeff Bezos, and uh, you know, you just can't even, and it makes sense. It makes sense, and we knew that there are connections because we have the connections to New York, just like Pennsylvania with our son's case, because they're trafficking, right? They're trafficking, so we have these. Um, this pipeline, right? We have mapped that out, and these connections, absolutely, and from Mexico all the way down to Brazil, all the way down to Brazil, and wow, and now who is really Mondami? And we knew because of his campaign that he was operating in deception, right? Saying whatever the people there, the desperate people there in New York that are just, you know, uh, being pulled down into poverty, wanted to hear, right? They're looking for a savior. They're looking for a savior, and they're thinking that this mayor who just, uh, you know, uh, winks at them and promises them, free stuff that he's actually going to give it to them. But no, he wants control over the judicial system in New York. He wants to block things, right? That is really clearly why they wanted him in that position, just like why they want Montoya in the position he's in, because they don't want accountability, right? They don't want accountability. They don't want investigations. They want to block investigations. They want to block accountability. And thank you so much, Elaney, for your prayers for justice. And thank you, Donna, for coming on. God bless you. Um, I'm so glad you made it because the news is breaking everywhere. And now because of Jeffrey Epstein's files being released, you know what it says? It says we've been right all along. It says we've been right all along that what Richard was whistleblowing on was so big that they sent El Mayo's lawyer to handle him, right? To be his handler, to be, uh, a spy to see what he knew. Counterintelligence, right? Counterintelligence, so he could tell the cartels what Richard knew. Um, and the timeline really shows that they were under a lot of pressure because President Trump in his first administration arrested Jeffrey Epstein, arrested Ghislaine, arrested El Chapo, right? El Chapo's sons. Cesar Duarte, right, was extradited. Um, and El Chapo was extradited. Uh, was let me make sure I'm saying this right about Cesar Duarte because he was just arrested recently too, but he was arrested then too for embezzlement and money laundering with his um, cows, right? With the cows, money laundering for the cartel. And now we know that Oswaldo uh, Rodriguez Barunda is a family with Sylvia Barunda Firth, and Oswaldo, he owns Aldiario. And so it really tells you what's going on with Sylvia Brunda Firth and her positions, that she has actively been targeting our son's case, obstructing justice in each and every one of her positions, her family ties, putting forth false narratives in the news. She operates in deception and also um, really abuses her position. And now we know that as when she was city attorney for El Paso, she was also the agent for El Diario. And as city attorney, she was self dealing. We have confirmed that today. That is absolutely breaking news that she was. And what do I mean by self dealing? She was getting the city to um, the legal notices that need to be given out to the public. They pay newspapers to publish those notices and announcements. And she was getting the El Paso city as city attorney uh, to use Al Diario for those announcements, for those legal announcements and legal notices. And so she's just giving herself, because that's her family's El Diario. It's a huge conflict of interest. And so she was enriching herself through that. And we know that Oswaldo Rodriguez Barunda is really the big money launderer for the Juarez cartel, and that the Juarez cartel made a deal with the El Paso cartel, the Mormon faction El Paso cartel, that gave privileges to both of those cartels and gave visa privileges to the Juarez cartel to live in El Paso, to do business in El Paso, to get liquor licenses in El Paso, to get a driver's license in El Paso, to buy a house, to get bank loans, and on and on and on. And we know that the U.S. consulate was allowing Jeffrey Epstein to hold his um, sex cult parties in the consulate buildings, in the U.S. consulate buildings in Juarez, and that terrible, terrible things happen. You can read those publications, those that we just put up on our site. Let's see if I can bring that up. Let's see if I can bring that up. There's so much here. Let's see if I can put that on. Okay, yeah. So here, here is this is Zoran's mother, and that baby. They're saying that it's Zoran. I don't know. Um, this is Bill Clinton. This is, of course, the monster, Jeffrey Epstein. They're all monsters, right? This is Mitch Epstein, who is the first husband of Mira, okay, Zoran's mother. And here I put their faces close together to see these two really look alike, these wow, wow. Here's the email where, they they have a long relationship, okay? Because this is just a long relationship. Um, and so it's just, yeah, it's kind of shocking. It is really shocking. Yeah, Steve Jobs. You're right. You're right. Steve Jobs. Okay, I need to look at my. Okay, so here is this. This is the self-dealing that I was just talking about. We put that together. That's her family member, and she's just giving themselves some money here as city attorney. Now this is personal to us because she has really done so much evil, and evil in our son's case. Okay, a lot of evil. So, Marianne Williamson, the Ball folk, yeah. Um, yeah, it is just shocking. Here is, I posted up Epstein's Zorro Ranch. They really have focused on the island, but the island is just in the middle of the pipeline, right? You start with Zorro Ranch, and that borders on the northern call up of White Sands Missile Range, which is Fort Bliss, part of Fort Bliss, White Sands Missile Range. It's all together there. And hold on, my battery. So, um, but I really believe that this Zorro Ranch is key. And I just read, and I haven't posted it yet, that New Mexico is now, in the last 2 days, have decided that they're going to investigate Zorro Ranch. Okay, the last two, it took. See, that's what I'm saying. We are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. As this comes up, they are then driven to do their job. And I mean, I know this is so late, but you know, um, it needs to be done. It needs to be done, the investigation. And this is very interesting because this is Kirkland Air Force Base, Albuquerque. Lots of things going on there. Here is the ranch, okay, and then here, okay. So when you look at the map, I should have flipped this because this is really north. Here is the airstrip. And that's important to know that it had its own airstrip with its own hangar. Okay. Yeah, so and it had safe, restricted, they just flew in that restricted airspace. And then they also have the Oto beacon, which is also in the pictures that I found. This here shows Fort Bliss and Juarez clearly on here. And here is Nova Casa Grandes with, of course, um, this is a stronghold, the colonial Juarez, colonial Dublin, colonial Baron, LeBaron. The LeBarons, they were killed during this time period too, during the first. And I should have put that into the timeline because it's very, very important in the whole um, picture when the Labarons, I think you could say Labarons or Labarons, when the family with the children and the wives, this was a polygamous family, lots of wives, lots of children, and they were, part of this whole cartel war thing, and they lost their lives. It was really tragic. It was a horrible thing. But this is just their, so you have right here would be Fort Huachuca, right? Fort Huachuca and and Fort Bliss. So these two areas, really heavy with the cartel trafficking, the criminal trafficking. So I just wanted to tell you because people have asked, well, what do you mean by this Mormon faction? Well, it started here. It started here with the uh, this area. They're dual citizens. They can go back and forth, and then they get special privileges because their temples are on the Mexican side. So, like even during COVID, they got special passes that they could travel across that border with no questions asked. Because they, had to go worship. So I think that that's really important. And they have a Chinese connection, a huge Chinese connection. So, because of course the Panama Canal was almost being taken over by the Chinese, and so of course they're going to, if they're into trafficking, of course they're going to, and you see it in the pipeline that they are going to make deals with the Chinese, right? It's just very, very dangerous for our country. Very, it the security breaches are so egregious, and the security breaches is what caused Richard to lose his life, okay? Because the very people that were supposed to be securing his area, his barracks, Fort Bliss, the border, they were part of the Mormon faction El Paso cartel. And so the very people like Colin Wetton that received his whistleblower report leaked his identity to the cartel. So, the very people that were trying to keep, that we were paying with our taxpayers' money to keep him secure, they're the ones that were the perpetrators. And so this is very dangerous because part of that Juarez cartel, Mormon faction, El Paso cartel, part of their alliance is to give access without asking for a FOIA. Okay, because a FOIA then documents that you wanted access, right? But without even applying for a FOIA, asking for a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act, they could access our intelligence databases, and I think they still can do it. I think they still have access to our intelligence databases, our narcotics, especially the narcotics intelligence databases. So any kind of operation that's going on could be leaked. Any agent that's on a case, any whistleblower, any informant, all of that is they can see it. They can see it and they can take major action targeting to protect their criminal activity. So it's this breach of security that has been really just so egregious, so uh, treasonous. I mean, these are traitors. These are absolute traitors. They want all the benefits of the United States because they want the visas to live in the United States, but they are traitors to the United States. Um, so here is, of course, this is Epstein with his Zorro Ranch right up here. And you can see there is, he has a huge 10,000 acres. Okay, 10,000 acres. 7,000 he owned, a little over 7,000 he owned, and then he rented government property. And what it did is it gave him restricted airspace right to his ranch, okay, so that those planes would not be detected. Um, and, and oh, this right here is really important too, because this is where the death camp was. This is where the emergency intake center were, and it's probably more, but our numbers are 500,000 children were trafficked. 500,000. The death camp of migrant children, unaccompanied children, which, give me a break. They're not, 500,000 children can't be unaccompanied. Okay. Okay. No, I don't buy that. I've never bought that, you know. And that's how the reports, how the narrative is to hypnotize us to think, oh, where are these poor, like 500,000 children are walking up to our border. Are you kidding me? And this could sleep 10,000, had 10,000 beds, 10,000 beds. Okay. Um, and the reports that we have gotten over 5 years from what was going on in there, you don't want to know. It's the worst type of crimes against children. And I mean, all the way up to 17 years old. Okay. These are uh, considered children all the way up to the age 17. So all through that. And it was absolutely horrid. Um, so there's enough witnesses for that. That's what I'm saying. There's enough witnesses. Here is some better pictures of like um, the beacon, right? The beacon. This is Here's the beacon. Here's a bigger view. The Autovore, and the beacon is right there, right past the northern call up of White Sands Missile Range. And if you are a plane, you tune in to that frequency and it will take you right there to Zorro Ranch. Okay, right there to Zorro Ranch. Here's Zorro Ranch, right? Here's Zorro Ranch. Here is his airstrip, right? Here's the beacon. Oh yeah, this is the pipeline, the Trans-Western Pipeline, which is a airstrip. There's an airstrip right there. But this is the Otovor, and this is the airstrip for um, Zorro Ranch. It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And that went on for years, years and years. Yeah, they were just, laughing it up and doing the worst and worst type of crimes ever in their satanic, demonic minds and actions, right? In actions. But it's all being revealed now. We have to act. We have to absolutely act, and we have to share, because this just can't, because this is all on taxpayer dimes. They don't use their own money for their bricks and mortar or their operations or flight operations, all this stuff. No, they use taxpayer money. They use it through 501c3s and all of that. And we're just being, fraud, waste, and abused everywhere, everywhere. And you can see just a little part of it up in Minnesota. And it makes sense because, when you're $38 trillion in debt, we should have like gold roads. We should have the most luxurious bridges and buildings and transportation, maybe even, I mean, it should be like heaven in the United States for $38 trillion dollars, okay? But we have nothing for our debt because of the fraud, the level of fraud. And we see it in Minnesota, and it is just so bad in this area. So bad what they've done. Um, and Richard saw it. Here's this other map I put together with the timeline. And you can see this pipeline. Here's Fort Bliss. Here's Fort Huachuca. Here's the ranch. And, here's their island. This is why Cuba is so important. Um, uh, and so many people have been trafficked from Cuba and Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and then you had Jeffrey's little island here. Here's Venezuela with the fuel, but they were stealing fuel, okay? Just to let you know, and I should put here's the Panama Canal. I should put an arrow here too, because they were stealing fuel from this pipeline. They were siphoning it off. They don't even want to use their own fuel, right? They want to sell their fuel, but they want to siphon even more. They want to steal it, and that's been caught by President Trump with Cesar Peniche and his group of Carvel, right? So that is connected to the governor's office there in Chihuahua, Mexico. And evidence indicates that they were also stealing fuel from Fort Bliss. Okay. And then of course down here is John the God's farms, which you just don't even want to know what happened. But he was uh, uh, he was impregnating a lot of women, and these babies were being sold. And so these babies were being sold, and so they looked alike. And this is why we have focused on, this double ganger phenomena that is going on around Erica Kirk. And now with Zoran Mandami. Okay, this is not separate from this case because even Jeffrey Epstein was wanting to get his DNA out there, right? He wanted to spread, he was trying to impregnate lots of women, and so was John of God. They both had the same goal, right, in that respect. And here, of course, you have Oprah. You can't see it, it's so small, but with Beto O'Rourke, she platformed him in 2019, right before he announced his run for presidency, and then she of course endorsed him, and she endorsed Kamala and Biden and everything like that because she was promoting John of God, and John of God was arrested, right? He was arrested um, December of 2018, I believe, if I can remember the timeline absolutely right, but I think I'm right. I know it was December 2018. He was arrested. And of course, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and Ghislaine was arrested. And so you see that the main actors for this pipeline were being arrested. Something was being done in the first administration of President Trump. And now, he is going after all of the cartel kingpins, um, going after the fuel that they have stolen over so many years. That's why he went and got Maduro and the fuel, right? Because they were stealing so much fuel, and they have to have fuel to run Cuba and this whole pipeline. I can't tell you that I understand it all. I just know that this has all something to do with our son, because they targeted Richard. It was El Mayo's lawyer that they sent. It was Beto O'Rourke. It was the Mormon faction. El Paso cartel that has been targeting us, targeting our son first and foremost, and targeting us, and just blocking everything that we've been trying to do. But God is bigger than they are, and he's cut through all of that. And so we're very grateful. This next one here is, of course, this double ganger. And there's more coming. People have been sending me pictures, and it is just the weirdest thing because when I first saw this picture, I thought, oh, that's Patrick Crucius. And then someone said, no, that's Beto O'Rourke. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that looks a lot like Beto O'Rourke. And then some people say, oh, no, that's Tyler Robinson, right? But Tyler Robinson really scores very high with Tyler Massey. Um, so yeah, it is something is going on here, and it really fits in with the pipeline. And of course, we know at this point, with all benefits given to her, that Erica Kirk is operating in deception. We absolutely know that by at this point. And we ask why. Why are you operating in deception? So because she's gotten every benefit from everybody, but she still employs Dan Flood and Brian Harple, the failed security team of her husband. She is, so she's not in fear. She's not thinking, oh man, um, I want answers, or I want to fire them and get me some that won't fail me. No, she must have information that, she doesn't have to worry, that she can go on with life. She can be the CEO. She can do whatever. And she doesn't have to operate with fear that they might come for her. Right. And that is what is really, really creepy to me, very creepy, because when you look at like Jacqueline Kennedy, she was, yeah, she operated in a totally different way, and she had some major fear for her life. Uh, yeah. So, and for her team and for her organization, and that you would think that Erica Kirk would address the security breach and the failed security team. And it looks just really bad that she keeps them on. It's almost like she promotes them. It's weird. It's weird. Now, this is getting a lot of attention. Sorry, I have a stuffy nose tonight. A lot of attention, and it is the emails coming out about George Bush Sr. that are the most despicable little email you ever want to read. It is so, so demonic, so satanic. And of course, we have that picture with Leilani Hart with Bush uh, W. And it seems like it's a rotten apple. It seems like it is a rotten apple, y'all. Okay. And I want to be, careful, because I remember with Bush W, we had a prayer group. We were on our knees praying for him, right? For him to win the presidency. They operate in deception. And of course, that one I fell for. I fell for that deception. After 9/11, I didn't fall for it anymore. But that was a wake up call for us. But yeah, they were up to no good, and really, really demonic, satanic things. And here is Colin Wetton. I talk about him a lot, about him leaking Richard's identity to the cartel. He's part of the Mormon faction El Paso cartel in alliance with the Mexican cartels, and he's a dirty FBI agent. He's a big guy in that office there. He's the assistant special agent in charge, but he's been there for over a decade, at least longer than that. And I think he's been through about 7 different special agents in charge. So really, I think he is the main special agent in charge because he's been there so long. And I think that that's wrong that he's been there so long because he has major ties in the Nova Casa Grandes Mormon area, and I'm sure probably he's like dual citizen, he really operates for that Mormon colony there in Mexico. That's where he operates, like with, yeah, when you look into it. And these two are also part of the Mormon faction, El Paso cartel, Todd Petkus and David Frost. And they're very important because they were in charge of the Walmart mass shooting investigation, and they hid from us. They just operated in total deception. And they have a lot of personal conflicts of interest that should have banned them, banned them from that operation because they have some really big military ties with Fort Bliss. So, um, and some domestic violence issues too. But they kept the Mayela's name out of reach for us. They should have let us know all of this. They just uh, targeted a whistleblower. They allowed tampered evidence in the case. I mean, please read the article because it's, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, very important. And then of course, Leilani Hart, her being protected. And this group protected Leilani Hart. Why haven't they arrested Leilani Hart? Because she's reporting the worst type of crimes against children, facilitating the worst type of crimes against children, and other violations. And so she needs to be arrested. So I've put that all together for you to see the connections in here, that they were absolutely engaged in the worst type of crimes against children, and that the FBI field office in El Paso was protecting these predators, okay? Protecting these predators and leaking whistleblowers' identity to the cartel that caused our son's death. That is how evil these people are. They're very, very evil, and I want the front row seats when it's time for their accountability. I really do. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm just so sick of this satanic evil, okay? It has just been 5 years of hell, hell. And we've got pretty good views on this. And so I want to thank everybody for sharing, sharing, sharing. We don't monetize our site or our videos or anything like that because then more restrictions would come on to our information. We don't want any restrictions. We just depend on you sharing, sharing, sharing to get this out, because if you're not monetized, then they don't really push your information out there. And then, of course, we're shadow banned. So all of your sharing is so important to us, and we want to say thank you so much. But it's not just important to us, and of course we want our son's remains. That's our main objective here, because we have fulfilled so many other, we've done step by step by step, and now it's just getting our son's remains. Okay, we've got in the line of duty. We know who the prime suspects are. We have all the hard evidence. We've filed to absolutely document everything that we've been through. And so now, there's a couple more steps that we're trying to do, but we want our son's remains. And we just need the sharing, everybody knowing about this case so that we can drive them to give us back our son's remains, because the evidence that we've shared is that they knew they already had Richard's remains. The FBI was, we had multiple top government officials corroborating Nadal Baim that the FBI had found Richard's remains. And of course, we believe they were at Plenitude Crematorium, and we want those remains identified. And because the Juarez cartel controls, and of course the El Chapitos cartel control the AG and the Attorney General there, Carlos Manuel Salas, and Hargi, and Governor Campos, and all of them. They are blocking it as much as they can. They are, even though they're implicated in all of that, because of El Mayo implicated them in all of that. They are still. It's a war going. It's a push and pull, and so that's why your power is really the power is in your hands. The sharing, and demanding justice, and just the identification of those corpses that were collected, over 400 corpses at Plenitude Crematorium. That's connected to Beto O'Rourke, okay? It's connected to Purchase Funeral Homes. It's connected to El Paso in every way, because the owners, Rosa Maria Purchase Arellano Corona, her son, Rafael Arellano Coron, they operate businesses and live even right next to Beto O'Rourke. The ex-wife of Raphael, she is a big part of the City magazine. Um, y'all, it's just so it's the people right now that have the power to make this transparent and drive accountability, and get Montoya out. Get Montoya out. He's fake. Get those fake judges out. Um, Absolutely. So here that is again in a narrow. I put this video out because this application here is so important in proving that the Walmart mass shooting was an operation, and we have multiple investigators that say, quote unquote, staged, okay, quote, staged, unquote, or close quote. So that's really important. And of course, oh yeah, this is another, there's just so many violations here. Don't forget that Michael G. Mayella was working with these two dirty FBI agents in charge of the Walmart. The very family of Patsy, whose father is John Brian Crucius, who was a disciple of John of God, or learning under the disciples of John of God. You know, you can't. I mean, can you believe it? So, and he's working with them as this cyber tech guy in the FBI, in the DA's office, in the Walmart cybersecurity. So, and they keep this from us. So, we're just giving you all kinds of breaking news because we give you the names: Todd Petkus and David Frost, and they're up to no good. And Michael G. Mayella, we're the ones that broke that for you, and because we're trying to get justice for our son, and we want justice for El Paso, justice for Juarez, for the United States, for, you know, we've got to do things right, or we just don't have a future, right? We don't have a bright future. We've got to do things right. So, so thank you so much for sharing all of that. And yeah, here's the death row inmate, Charles Victor Thompson. He was put to death this last week. Texas is a death penalty state. When you do very vicious crimes, um, that is deserving of that, um, Texas will do it. Texas will do it. Texas has the stomach to do it, and we're glad that this is a Texas case. Absolutely, because these crimes are vicious. So, okay, with that, thank you so much. Let me read through some of the yes, with ICE being so harsh at the moment, why aren't they after her? You know, ICE is imperfect, the FBI is imperfect, the military is imperfect. They're all infiltrated, and there's bad actors in all of them. So this is, I think you have to keep that in mind. I really do. I really do. But these last ICE incidences, they weren't they weren't telling us everything, okay? Because Renee's mom works for Haiti Children, really, and she was a monitor. She was training to be to obstruct justice with ICE. And then of course, Pretty, Pretty, he brought a gun to um, an intentional felony violation. And I think that is really important that a lot of people aren't saying. But he went there to intentionally commit felony crimes, and he brought a weapon to that. That's illegal. You have the right to carry and to have weapons and ammunition. Um, Absolutely. But not if your intent is to commit felony crimes. You lose that right. And that's really important for people to understand. So he was really playing a very, very dangerous game, a very dangerous game. And especially with ICE agents that cannot be 100% trusted, and everyone knows that. So why would you do that? So, yeah, yeah, I think that's all I need to say on that. She has committed harsh crimes against children and marriages, y'all. And marriages, I can't even tell you how, what we've heard and what she's all done. It's just, she's a horrible. Lilani Hart needs to be arrested because all of it's there to arrest her. So they need to arrest her. Um, you're absolutely right. Thank you for exposure. Thank you. The Great Awakening 2026. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on so late and being so patient with us. We're working very, very hard to get this all out and get it all documented and get it all filed and do all the research to give you the best information that we possibly can, and we have. And what is really, it's pretty emotional, is that we've been right all along. Not that we've wanted to be right all along. This is not great to say, "Oh, look, it's been corroborated. They've been committing satanic crimes," right? I didn't want that. But this is, but we knew it was really bad, and Richard told us it's so bad. It's so bad. Um, you can't even wrap your head around it. And so everything makes sense now with what he was telling us. And, uh, um, and we've been right all along. So with that, praise God. Praise God. And please, we ask you to share and like and get this information out. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow.